Now, Darren Stanton is ready for me. He is a body language expert, and I've got one or two quite important questions to ask him. Darren, good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Got to ask you, when the Diamond Jubilee coach, when it arrived at the Abbey, and it was 5 minutes early, there's no dispute about that whatsoever, and Charles looks a little bit discombobulated, and then the coach moves on a couple of yards, and we see that image of him looking down, muttering. What's that telling us, Darren Stanton?
Well, good afternoon, Nigel. This was reminiscent of when we saw him signing some other documents when he got quite frustrated. So, from a non-verbal point of view, we see his eyebrows come together, and basically we see what's called a micro-expression. So, it's what we call leakage. It's a sign of impatience, of frustration, and a little bit of anger. So, something has obviously in his mind not gone to plan.
Yes, a little bit of anger, and he's talking to that. The door is open. A conversation is being had, and it all looks pretty terse. Thereafter, going through those extraordinary moments as he came out from behind the screen, having been anointed, as we moved on to the crowning, what did you see in Charles's body language and Charles's face?
I actually felt he probably felt a little bit overwhelmed actually in all of it all, even though he's obviously prepared his whole life for this moment. We see again emotional changes. So initially his cheeks were quite red, and they went quite pale, and that's to do with emotional shifts. So I think for a moment, he was kind of overwhelmed with the sort of the whole event really. And also we saw him sort of looking down quite a lot, and at certain times he did become quite sort of teary, so I noticed that he was holding back a lot of emotion.
And tell us, run through a list for us. What you made of Harry, the brief little pieces we saw of him, what you made of Camilla. Just give us your overall feeling about not just people going into the Abbey, coming out of the Abbey, being in the Abbey, but also what the balcony scenes told us later on.
I think this is a celebration that everyone has come together to be part of. Obviously, with all the things of COVID and the Queen passing away, I think it's something that the whole nation has come together in. In terms of Harry, when he made his way into the Abbey, he came over to me like a fish out of water. He felt very anxious, and we could see that in his face. Again, we saw his eyebrows come together, and again, it was almost, I'm not quite sure what I'm doing or what am I supposed to be doing. And we saw Princess Beatrice. She was kind of talking to him, trying to put him at ease, because he did feel like a bit of a fish out of water. Although later on, he did sort of find his confidence. And I do find with Prince Harry that he tends to be a lot more confident in himself when he does appear at events without Meghan.
That's a very interesting point. So what you're saying is really that when he's with Meghan, he's kind of playing second fiddle.
Yeah, absolutely. I've noticed a lot of the events that he attends, he does play second fiddle, and also certainly in Invictus Games, when he attends alone, we see the Prince Harry that we've always seen. He's sort of very outgoing, laughing and joking, whereas with Meghan he tends to. I've seen lots of what we call fake smiles. The most faked emotion is a smile, and we do that to avoid social awkwardness. And we see lots of fake smiles with Harry when he's with Meghan, and that's just to avoid, the social awkwardness of not really having a good time.
I mean, I know you're not a marriage guidance counsellor, Darren Stanton, but from what you're saying about Harry and Meghan, it looks like they could have a fairly rocky future ahead of them.
I believe so, Nigel. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be plain sailing by any chalk, really.
No, well, I'm sure that's absolutely right. And what about Camilla? I mean, I thought she looked pretty comfortable through it all.
Absolutely. I mean, she has always been Charles's rock, really, and in various events that they've both been attending, we notice that Charles is always making sure that Camilla's, very nearby to him, and if he can't see her, he tends to get a little bit anxious. So I felt she conducted herself with great gravitas, really, and in terms of that she was smiling pretty much throughout the ceremony, the coronation. So I think, yes, I totally agree with you. She was completely very confident, and she's definitely grown into that role So yeah, overall, I think she's going to be a very, very there's going to be a lot of support to King Charles.
Without a doubt. And quite a moment there, wasn't there, in the ceremony between father and son, the Prince of Wales and the King. That looked really genuine.
I believe it was, Nigel, and the thing was a great father and son moment. And even though these people are royalty and they've spent their whole life in the public eye, the two people, father and son, coming together, it's the role that Charles has spent his whole life preparing for. So there was what we call massive, deep rapport, and that's demonstrated by a lot of eye contact. Both William and the King were showing signs of emotion. And again, we also saw that King Charles's cheeks were kind of changing in terms of becoming more redder. And that is, again, a shift in emotion. So I think for a moment, I think King Charles was really fighting back that emotion.
Yeah, Alistair Stewart a few moments ago made that very point, that it seemed to be a very, very intimate and, yes, very emotional moment between father and son. Very real, very genuine,
yeah.
An image that will last for a long time. Now, there was huge speculation about what would Kate, the Princess of Wales, what would she wear, what colour would the dress be, and all the rest of it. I mean, she seems to be, in public, just exceptionally confident. Or am I misreading it?
No, I totally agree with you again, Nigel. I mean, I've been assessing the couple for about a decade or a little bit more. And, in the early stages, Kate was not that confident. Certainly with William, we used to see lots of gestures which we call pacifiers in psychology, which are this sort of gesture where the King used to put his hand in his jacket or play with cufflinks, and they're all sorts of self-reassurance gestures. And both William and Harry inherited these gestures, but in the last couple of years, certainly William has become more confident, not as confident as Kate. And you're quite right that she has grown into her own. She's attending events on her own, also with members of the royal family such as Princess Anne. So, she's supremely confident in terms of whether she's alone or with William. So yes, I totally agree. And again, she is William's rock, really.
Absolutely. Darren, final one, 20 seconds only. Princess Anne, just how magnificent and confident is she?
Well, again, she's somebody that's comfortable in her own skin, always says what she thinks. She's always been forthright, not going to change. And I think at the end of the day, people always know where they stand with her.